Hello, and welcome back to Scrum Study Course on a guide to the Scrum body of knowledge, a definitive guide for Scrum and the rules for the game. Scrum is a framework for developing and sustaining complex projects. What is the Scrum body of knowledge? It is a compilation of the latest methods and best practices employed by its practitioners and experts. Furthermore, it provides guidelines for the successful implementation of Scrum. It is the most popular agile project management and project development framework. It provides a comprehensive framework that includes the principles, aspects, and processes of the Scrum framework. Now that we know what Scrum and a guide to the SBOC are, let us see the applicability of Scrum as defined in a guide to the SBOC. Scrum framework is widely used across portfolios, programs, and/or projects in any industry, products, services, or any other deliverables to be developed, and projects of any size or complexity. According to the Scrum body of knowledge, the term product may refer to a product, service, or other deliverable. The practicality of Scrum as a framework is that it can be applied effectively to any project in any industry, whether they are small projects with 6-person teams or large, complex projects with up to several hundred team members. Now that we have pretty much summed up the Scrum body of knowledge in general, let's quickly run through an overview of a guide to the SBOC chapters. The first chapter describes the purpose and framework of a guide to the SBOC and provides an introduction to the key concepts of Scrum. It also contains the summary of Scrum principles, Scrum aspects, and Scrum processes. The second chapter expands on the 6 Scrum principles, the foundation on which the Scrum framework is based. Chapters 3 through 7 elaborate on the 5 Scrum aspects that must be addressed throughout any project. The chapters discussed are organization, business justification, quality, change, and risk. Chapters 8 through 12 cover the 19 Scrum processes involved in carrying out a Scrum project. These processes are, in turn, the part of 5 Scrum phases, which are initiate, plan and estimate, implement, review in retrospect, and release. The phases detail the associated inputs and outputs of each process, as well as the various tools that may be used in each. Some inputs, tools, and outputs are mandatory and are indicated as such. Others are optional, depending on the specific project, organizational requirements, and/or guidelines set forth by the organization's Scrum Guidance Body, or SGB. Finally, Appendix A contains an overview of the Agile Manifesto by Fowler and Highsmith, and a discussion of various Agile methods for those who want more information about Agile. The sections covered in this chapter are 1.1 Overview of Scrum, 1.2 Why use Scrum, 1.3 Purpose of a Guide to the SBOC, 1.4 Framework of a Guide to the SBOC, and 1.5 Scrum versus Traditional Project Management. And that wraps up the introduction to the Scrum body of knowledge. We'll see you in the next session, Overview of Scrum. Hello, and welcome back to Scrum Study Course on a guide to the Scrum body of knowledge. In the earlier SBOC guide module, we saw that a guide to the Scrum body of knowledge provides guidelines for the successful implementation of Scrum. So isn't it necessary that we know a little more about Scrum? Let's take a look. A Scrum project involves a collaborative effort to create a new product, service, or other result as defined in the project vision statement. All projects are impacted by constraints of time, cost, scope, quality, resources, organizational capabilities, and other limitations that make them difficult to plan, execute, manage, and ultimately succeed. However, successful implementation of the results of a finished project provides significant business benefits to an organization. It is therefore important for organizations to select and practice an appropriate project management framework. And this is where Scrum comes in. So what is Scrum? Scrum is one of the most popular Agile frameworks. It is an adaptive, iterative, fast, flexible, and effective methodology designed to deliver significant value quickly and throughout a project. Scrum ensures transparency in communication and creates an environment of collective accountability and continuous progress. The Scrum framework, as defined in the SBOM guide, is structured in such a way that it supports product and service development in all types of industries and in any type of project, irrespective of its complexity. Here another question arises. Why is Scrum better than other project management techniques? A key strength of Scrum lies in its use of cross-functional, self-organized, and empowered teams who divide their work into short, concentrated work cycles called sprints. Think of sprints as short time spans in which a certain amount of work must be done. Take a look at this diagram, which illustrates the Scrum project's flow. As you can see, the Scrum cycle begins with a stakeholder meeting, during which the project vision is created. The product owner then develops a prioritized product backlog, which contains a prioritized list of business and project requirements, written in the form of user stories. Each sprint begins with a sprint planning meeting, during which high-priority user stories are considered for inclusion in the sprint. A sprint generally lasts between 1 and 6 weeks and involves the Scrum team working to create potentially shippable deliverables or product increments. During the sprint, short, highly focused daily stand-up meetings are conducted where team members discuss daily progress. Toward the end of the sprint, a sprint review meeting is held, during which the product owner and relevant stakeholders are provided a demonstration of the deliverables. The product owner accepts the deliverables only if they meet the predefined acceptance criteria. The sprint cycle ends with a retrospect sprint meeting where the team discusses ways to improve processes and performance as they move forward into the subsequent sprint. I hope you enjoyed this quick overview and learning about the project's flow in Scrum, and I'll see you in the next module where we will briefly discuss the history of Scrum. And thank you for learning with us. Hello everyone, and welcome to Scrum Study. In the previous module, I took you through the overview of Scrum. Before moving into the core concepts of Scrum in detail, let's first have a look at the history of Scrum. The framework had its inception in the 1980s. In the mid-80s, Hirotaka Takuchi and Ikuhiro Nonaka defined a flexible and all-inclusive product development strategy, where the development team works as a unit to reach a common goal. They described an innovative approach to product development that they called a holistic or rugby approach, where a team tries to go the distance as a unit, passing the ball back and forth. They based their approach on manufacturing case studies from various industries. Takuchi and Nonaka proposed that product development should not be like a sequential relay race, but rather should be analogous to the game of rugby, where the team works together, passing the ball back and forth as they move as a unit down the field. The rugby concept of Scrum, where a group of players form together to restart the game, was introduced in this article to describe the author's proposal that product development should involve moving the Scrum downfield. Later, Ken Schwaber and Jeff Sutherland elaborated on the Scrum concept and its applicability to software development in a presentation at the Object-Oriented Programming, Systems, Languages, and Applications OOPSLA conference held in 1995 in Austin, Texas. Since then, several Scrum practitioners, experts, and authors have continued to refine the Scrum conceptualization and framework. In recent years, Scrum has increased in popularity and is now the preferred project development framework for many organizations globally. Thank you for learning with us.